so today we're looking at zero ease. So I'm just going to trace out the bodice block, which is what you'll need to do. But I just want to talk to you about what we're going to be doing to this block, what we're aiming for in the end. So we're going to take out all the extra to make a sort of a strapless bodice corset type thing. I'm just going to go do it to the waist. So if you can imagine that this is the side view of your mannequin, like so. So the side of your mannequin is shaped like that. But any pattern that you make is actually going to come straight down here to the bust and then straight down to the waist. So even if it was quite fitted, it's going to skim over the body. It's not going to fit right to it. So the first sample we're going to look at is for the zero ease, where we'll be making it be able to fit by taking some out here, taking some out here, making it become a strapless shape. And then we will go on further to take it in so it would fit right in under a bust. But if we just concentrate on this one for the moment, then we're going to be taking out excesses to be able to make us, allow us to make a strapless top that would fit close to the body. Okay, that's what we're looking at doing. There's a whole list of stuff that you need to do. There is a chart for you to check against, and I'm going to do the alterations in this brownie colour so you can see what's going on. Have the front and the back drawn out and the bust line put in, because some of the alterations we're going to do are going to happen on the bust line. Right then, I'm just going to start. Oh, I'll also start by saying the alterations that I'm giving you are specific to the block that we have at the university and the mannequin that we have at the university. If you're using a different block or a different mannequin, then these measurements would be slightly different, but we can talk about that as and when you might need it to happen. But as a general rule, you're going to have to be doing some reduction. Right then, so I'm going to start by doing the alterations that need to be done on the side seam. So for the front side seam, we are going to move the side seam in 2 centimetres on the bust line, and we're going to move the waist in by 1 centimetre, and we'll join that up, and that's going to be our new side seam. So that's the side seam with the ease taken out that would be allowed for when you were making the block. Now then, again, specific to the blocks that we have in the studio and the mannequins, I'm going to do what needs to happen on the back. And what needs to happen on the back is on the bust line, coming in by 1.5, and at the waist, I believe you also come in 1.5 on the back. We're going to join those up. That's our new back side seam. Okay, we're getting there. We need, if we go back to the drawing, to create that curve that's going to come in under the bust. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure a halfway point on the dart. And at that point, we're going to come out by 0.7. Now also, please remember, if you're using a half-size block, all of these measurements I'm giving you, you're going to be dividing in 2. They'll all only be half of what I'm stating. Okay, so this new mark we have there what's going to happen with that is you are going to join up from the end of your dart back into the waist where the dart ends, like so. You're going to do that on both sides. Beautiful, that's that done and dusted. Now, above the bust, I haven't really drawn it very well on here because the bust usually goes in a bit more. You also need to take some measurement out here, and you do that really simply by doubling the size of the top dart. So, doubling the dart, it happens to the armhole side, and I would say get your pattern master and slide up the dart until you get it to say where it measures 2. It could be where it measures 1.5, where it measures 3. It really doesn't matter. What does matter is that when you get to that position that measures whatever your choice is, you're going to come out to the armhole side by exactly the same measurement. And you're then going to come from your dart end up through here. Now, I can imagine you all thinking, that's just too weird, that's not going to work on the shoulder. But what you have to remember is we're looking at making a strapless bodice, so which could be any kind of shape really, couldn't it? So that shoulder section isn't going to exist. So there you go. That's why it doesn't matter that that's peculiar, and why it matters that this is bigger, so it can sit in over the top of the bust and not be baggy and gapey. Okay, so that's those measurements done, and basically what we need to do now is create a top line that we're going to like. So for this strapless bodice, it could be like that. It could be, my favourite ones are usually slightly shaped that way. You could have one that was princess line. Whatever, this is where you need to make this decision now. And you particularly want to take note of where the bust point is. A size 12 bust, we kind of work on the assumption that the bust mass takes up, so bust mass, if you say like that, takes up about 7 centimetres in a radius around the bust point. So I'm just going to mark that off on the top edge, because this gives us an indication of how high or how low we can go and how much breast or cleavage might be happening. So if I'm thinking of something that's relatively demure, I don't want to come below that line there, which is where the bust mass is expected to be. If I think I want a bit of cleavage, I can come down a bit lower here and know that I won't be showing nipple, but we will have a bit of flesh. So just think about what it is you're going to do on that top edge. So here we go. I am thinking I'm going to lower it slightly. I'm going to lower it to the bust point there, and I'm going to have something that comes up and then starts to come down again. But I have to go from one side of this dart to the next. So here's the thing. I need to be not just drawing a line that runs through. I need to make note of where that line should pop out on the other side. So again, if you measure from the end of the dart to where that star line is, that's 7.5. So I'm going to come up here, 7.5. I need to do a bit of folding. I'm going to fold that dart out. This is one way. I'm going to show you 2 ways. This is the messier, more hands-on way. Okay. Folding the dart out. closing it up as if it was the dart, I can then continue that line down to where I want it to finish on the centre front and know that it will run through once that dart is sewn up. There's another way, which I think is a cleaner way, and I'm trying to think if we touched on it in your first year at all. But if not, here it comes for the first time. It's a good thing to know. So I'm going to use another piece of paper, pattern paper, as a tracing paper. Oops. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark on the end of the dart, like so, and I'm going to mark on the curve of the proposed top line of my bodice. So, and then what I can do is just swing it over like so, and once I've got it in that swung over position, I can then draw in the rest of the neckline, and I'm going to trace through that with a tracing wheel. There you go. And now I still know that when those two get sewn together, if indeed that's what happens where the dart ends up being, it'll come together and give me a smooth run through at the neckline. Okay, let's have a look at what's happening at the back. So on the back here, I'm assuming a back fastening. I'm going to do similar to what we've just done to get a nice run through from the front to the back. Let me have a look at what's going on. So I've got my front armhole coming down here, and I've got my bust line coming along here, and I have my side seam. Stop it. And I'm going to shunt that across as if they were then getting sewn up. So I can now see, oh actually, it's not that. I'm going to keep it fairly simple. I can draw my run through, I can trace through with the wheel. Lovely. And I know that when those two get sewn together now, this will make a nice line. There won't be any strange dips or points. And from that point, I'm going to take it fairly straight through to the centre back. Lovely. And now we're going to have a look at how you would then trace this off to be a pattern. Now, this top dart can be manipulated like any dart that you manipulated in your first year. So you can slash it and move it. You could indeed pivot it if you wanted to. I'm just going to leave it where it is because my design, I've decided, is going to have a seam that runs down over the bust and out through the waist. So over the bust, out through the waist. And I'm going to keep it as simple as that. You could actually put other seams in. When I'm dealing with bridal wear, often it's good to have a seam here. Sometimes you want to move the side seam to somewhere else, but I think at the moment we'll just keep that pretty much as it is. Okay, I'm going to give it a princess line that's going to come down through the bust point like so, and we're going to take this line and just smooth it off nicely for the centre front. So please remember that you're not doing this pattern in felt tip. You're doing this pattern in something really nice and fine. But here we go. Coming down the centre front. Coming around the neckline. So I'm coming up the side of the dart and up the side of the waist to bust dart along the new line that we'd made. I'm going to give myself a balance point there and a balance point there. Oops, I wiggled it. I need to pop it back in position. Okay, so that's my centre front. I know that the grain is going to run with the centre front on this. I'm going to fold it ready. Have the seam allowance on and take it forward. Now I'm going to move over and trace off the side front, making sure that I leave enough space between those two pieces to be able to add seam allowance to them both. Okay, so I'm coming down the side of the widened dart and I'm making a nice smooth line through the bust point with no corners, because bosoms don't have corners. I'm giving myself a balance mark here and here. I've got that top line drawn. I'm coming down through the armhole. Well, it's not an armhole anymore, is it? It's the top edge of the bodice. I'm going to draw down the new side seam across the hem. Now on this one we need to know where the grain line is, so we're going to use the bust line and we're going to drop a line down at 90 degrees to give it a grain line. Okay, next, again making sure we leave a gap between the two. There's a couple of ways we can go about this, but I'll make it so it's a princess line at the back as well. So first line, it's that back side seam, and then I'm going to use the dart as where the princess line will run. Oops, sorry, that was a bit wibbly. Now then, I can see an issue with this pattern piece, which I'm just dropping down from the bust line again to find its grain line. I'm sure you remember why from your first year. So this pattern piece, it's very, very similar from the left to the right, and I haven't given any balance marks on the side seam. So I'm going to give myself a high balance mark that runs between the back piece and the front piece, and then for the back I'm going to give us, I'll mark it with a balance mark that's about halfway down, so that when you've got this pattern piece that looks very, very similar from left to right, you'll know which bit gets sewn to which bit. Okay, so that's right, so this was the side front, this is the side back, and now we need the centre back. So I'm just going to draw it here, I think. Mark off where that, lovely. So tracing it around its edges. Giving it its centre back. You know it's centre back, it's going to be a straight grain. Okay, easy peasy. The front's going to be on the fold, so this is a 12. It's going to be cut 1. So, and it's the front, let's call it a bustier. I like that name. Bustier. So this is the side front of bustier, so it's a 12. It's going to be cut 1 pair. Side front, bustier. So it's 12. It's going to be cut one pair. Side back. Bustier. And then you have the back. So bustier, size 12, cut one pair. I think it's really important that you that you annotate all of your patterns, but specifically that you annotate this pattern in a way that makes it clear that you understand what you're doing. So before I add the seam allowance on, I'm going to check that they're going to match up. So you can check this in several ways. You can check it by using a tape measure, or you can do what I always refer to as walking the seams, where you put this line, which is the sew line, on top of this line, which is the sew line, and see if they match. Now that is way out on that, and it's the same amount out here and the same amount out at the bottom. So I am going to look back at this area and assume that this area is where the mistake is. And I'm going to double check that that, when laid to there and swung over, comes out in that right place, and it is a little bit out. So I raise that to its new position. Now it's funny because I've got one line that does come to where it should. Okay, so let me go in again. Come up from the bottom edge this time. That fits perfectly. I'm walking the seam, that fits perfectly. I come up round here, and lo and behold, I'm out by about 0.3 on that new line. So I'm just going to bring that down. That's lovely. I'm happy to go with that now. So this line doesn't exist. So what's happened, it wasn't accurate from here up. It could be to do with using a big fat felt pen actually. But now it is, and I'll be happy to add seam allowance to that. Let's check my side seam. Beautiful. And you can still see that you've got the nice run through. And then we've got into the back. That's beautiful. And then let's check this one. Oh, missing its balance mark. That one's a little bit out as well. What is it? What's happened to me today? So, put the balance mark in, and we're just going to lower that slightly so it has a nice run through into the side back. So it's that bit that doesn't exist. Okay, you've made a pattern. You've made a pattern for bustier. It matches. It should fit the mannequin. However, once you start using zero ease, you really do need a person to fit it on. And you will especially need a person to fit it on with our next bit, which is sort of an introduction to the concept of contour. But I'll do that as a separate little film. Okay, dokes. Seam allowances, centimetre all round, half a centimetre if you are working half scale. Back momentarily with the contour.